Loyalty in sport is a pretty rare thing these days, but you know who gave me this video idea? Mark Noble, West Ham legend, retiring at the end of next season, over 500 appearances for West Ham. He spent exactly the same amount of time at West Ham as Messi has spent at Barcelona, so just shy of 17 years. But again, these kind of players are rare, not just in football, in most sports. But what about Formula One? Who in the history of the sport has stayed for the longest period of time at one team or kept the biggest proportion of their career at one team? Now for this, I'm just taking the simple measurement of who's raced the most races for just a single team. And that obviously favours more recent drivers because there's a lot more races these days. I mean, in the 60s, there was like 10 races a season. Now there's 23. So it's much easier to rack those races up. Working out percentage of career at one team wouldn't really be fair because you might just get a one season wonder who was only there in 1 year and then there'd be 100%, you know what I mean? But before we get into the top 10, in terms of the driver who's had the most races for one team and only ever represented one team, I think it's Jean-Eric Vergne with 58 at Toro Rosso. I can't find anyone else who started more races in Formula One only ever having represented one team. Although to be fair to Jev, if he'd have got the opportunity to be called up to Red Bull, I'm sure he would have taken it. Adrian Sutil would have actually taken this title with 92 races at Force India, but his final season was in a Sauber. The whole rest of his career though was at Force India, which is pretty mad. He would comfortably beat Jean-Eric Vergne. But anyway, let's get into the list. At number 10, we've got Mark Webber with 129 races for Red Bull. Marky Mark, the big Australian, started his F1 career at Minardi, had 2 years at Jaguar, 2 years at Williams, and then 7 full seasons at Red Bull. He was, of course, replaced in 2014 by Daniel Ricciardo, ended up going to WEC for a few years, won with Porsche in 2015, and then retired in 2016. Quality jawline, does punditry for Channel 4 now. I like Mark. He seems like my kind of guy. Number 9, we have Mika Häkkinen, 131 races for McLaren. For me, my favourite driver growing up. I was always rooting for Häkkinen over Schumacher. I guess going for the kind of underdog, you know, as a West Ham fan, is a bit of a character trait now. 2 years at Lotus were followed by 9 seasons at McLaren, obviously winning those titles in 98 and 99. As for now, well, he's 52, so I'm sure he's just chilling, enjoying life. He's got plenty of money, Mika. He doesn't have to worry. At number 8, we have Jacques Laffite with 132 races for Ligier. The only driver on this list I'd never heard of, to be honest. Jacques' career went between Ligier and Williams. He started at Williams, then went Ligier, then went Williams, then went back to Ligier. And to be honest, because I've heard of Ligier, but I don't really know too much about how they perform. I just assumed this would be like a backmarker team, not doing much with a backmarker drive that I've never really heard of. But quite the contrary. In 79 and 81 respectively, he won 2 races each season, and in 1981 he only finished 6 points behind championship winner Nelson Piquet, and that was with 6 retirements as well. That was clearly a quick car that was just prone to, go bang. Number 7, we've got Nico Rosberg with 136 races for Mercedes. Nico impressed during his 4 years at Williams. He did a very, very good job and got that call up to Mercedes, which was Brawn, in 2010. Firmly on merit as far as I'm concerned. Very underrated, Nico. He consistently beat Michael Schumacher when he was his teammate. And then obviously Lewis came in and we know how that relationship ended. Nico ended up retiring at the end of 2016 after winning that one and only driver's title. Bowing out at the very top. But obviously nowadays we all know the memes, right? Explosion behind Nico Rosberg, YouTube channel. But he is actually I think he's a phenomenal pundit, Nico. I'd love to see him more broadcasting for sure. Number 6, we have Jenson Button with 137 races for McLaren. With just one more race than Nico, it's JB. They actually both started their loyal runs at the same time because Jenson went to McLaren, the same time Nico went to Mercedes, and then they both finished at the end of the 2016 season. Unfortunately, JB was never able to emulate the success he had at Brawn. The closest he got was 2011, where he came second. And I say closest because that's just in position. He was still like 122 points behind Sebastian Vettel by the end of it. But the only reason he's got one more race than Nico is because in 2017, you might remember, Fernando Alonso, who was at McLaren, took the race off to go race in the Indy 500. Jenson took his place and peed in his seat, allegedly. Of course, now Jenson does a bit of punditry, does a good job, but he also has an advisory role at Williams. I just hope he had nothing to do with that Williams livery. Number 5, we have Felipe Massa with 139 races at Ferrari. Felipe Baby, he is of course at number 5. 2006 to 2013, 8 years of service to the Tifosi. Cruelly denied his one and only proper shot at a title in 2008 by the "is that Glock" moment. As amazing as that was for Hamilton, it was equally cruel to Felipe. Often outshone by his teammate, let's be honest, but then it was always going to be uphill battle against Schumacher and then Raikkonen and then Alonso. I mean, 3 phenomenal drivers. Most recently, he raced in Formula E, but from 2021 onwards, he should be doing Brazilian stock cars, which is like Brazilian kind of touring cars. And good luck to Felipe. I really like the man. He comes across as a proper, genuine bloke. Number 4, we have David Coulthard with 150 races for McLaren. Now, if you thought Mark Webber's jawline was strong, oh my word, Channel 4 have got all of the jawline, because both are now pundits for Channel 4's coverage of Formula 1. The Scot spent 9 seasons at McLaren from 1996 to 2004, wedged between a career at Williams at the start and Red Bull at the end. A few third places and a second place in the driver's title was the closest he ever got. He was just very unfortunate to be racing during the prime of one of the most dominant racing drivers of all time, Michael Schumacher. I also miss David doing the actual comms for the races. I mean, there's that famous moment where he absolutely pars Christina Aguilera, who's pretending to be interested in Formula. He's just no nonsense. I love David Coulthard. At number 3, we've got Kimi Raikkonen with 151 races for Ferrari. The Iceman was always going to make an appearance on this list, wasn't he? It's inevitable. Most starts ever in Formula 1 with 329. 151 of them were for the Prancing Horse. So that's still less than half of his career, which is mad. Started with 3 years from 2007 to 2009, and then he got famously paid off by Ferrari not to race because they wanted Alonso, and they basically put him in the contract. He took some time off rallying, then came back in 2012, almost bankrupted Lotus because he was doing so well and he was getting paid like extortionate amount of money for good results, which, I mean, fair play to him. And then he jumped back into a Ferrari in 2014 and stayed there for 5 more seasons. And now, of course, at 41 years of age, he's still doing it, starting his 3rd season with Alfa Romeo Racing. Legend. Number 2, we've got Lewis Hamilton with 156 races for Mercedes. It's mad to think, Lewis spent 6 years at McLaren, yet that's not the team he's raced for most. Now, of course, McLaren was McLaren Mercedes, so you could argue that... I mean, that relationship's always been there, hasn't it? But actually, his time at McLaren would have put him 13th on this list, so he's both P2 and P13. Of course, Lewis has benefited from a very, very long career where he's missed barely any races, and of course, there's 23 races a season now, so you know what I mean. And then at number 1, we've got Michael Schumacher with 180 races for Ferrari. Of course, it's Big Michael at number 1. Even with 23 races this year, if Lewis participates in every single one and every single one goes ahead, he'll still be 1 race behind Michael. So if he hadn't have missed Sakir with his positive test, he would have been level. Of course, Michael started with that one-off amazing performance around Spa in the Jordan, then had 5 seasons at Benetton, and then had 11 consecutive seasons at Ferrari. 1996 to 2006, 5 titles in 11 seasons, 2 second places, 2 third places, and then of course the 97 disqualification after he tried to punt Jacques Villeneuve off at the final race. Those 11 years at Ferrari were not short of drama and success. That's the top 10. Other notable mentions I found in this list. P11 and 12 are both held by Sebastian Vettel. 118 races at Ferrari, 113 at Red Bull. It's mad to think he's raced more for Ferrari than for Red Bull. That just doesn't feel right. Fernando is P16 at Renault with 105 races. And obviously now the team, it's still technically Renault, even though it races under the Alpine name. So that will continue to tick up from this year onwards. Also, Sergio Perez is at P20 with 99 starts for Force India/Racing Point. But there we have it. That's the 10 most loyal drivers in F1 history. Do we think anyone will beat Michael's tally apart from maybe Lewis? We'll see. But it might not happen. He might stop at 179 and just be like, I'm done. Maybe Max at Red Bull forever, Charles at Ferrari, Lando at McLaren. Loyalty is bred from having a real tie to your team. I mean, loads of footballers have, sacrificed having more successful careers in terms of silverware for staying at their boyhood club, their dream club, Will we see an F1 driver maybe do the same thing? I mean, again, George Russell would have been a prime example, but Mercedes got in there early, unfortunately. It would have been lovely to see him kind of help Williams grow forward, but I just don't see that happening. And also in the description, I've linked the list where I sourced all this information, so credit to Stats F1 for this list. That's what actually powers the Wikipedia page. Like, subs, notification bell if you like what I do. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.